how long have we spoke about this on BBC CWR? For years, it feels like plans to bring a major battery factory to the site of Coventry Airport, a project that's been led by the City Council. It's claimed that the factory could bring anything up towards £2.5 billion of investment, 6,000 new jobs, but yet still no sign of it. Planning permission to build the gigafactory is due to expire in a matter of months with still no main investor. So the future of this plan very much hanging in the balance, as our political reporter Joshua Nevitt reports.
This runway is where the gigafactory is supposed to be built and start production next year. For years, Coventry City Council has tried to woo investors to completely change the purpose of this airport. And yet, the tarmac remains untouched, leaving aviation businesses frustrated by the lack of certainty.
Catastrophic is probably the word to use, mainly because we've been stopped from doing any form of expansion. Customers don't know whether to come here, to whether the airport has been viable or not, and it's been insidious in the fact that it's just gone on for so long.
Good word that, isn't it? Insidious, because it has, hasn't it? The last mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, was at pains to try and get one motor manufacturer, just one, to commit to the gigafactory as a base, and the UK is way behind when it comes to its gigafactory sites, which are needed if we are to drive the transition towards electric vehicles. Andy Palmer is the chairman of the European battery company InnoBat. He says access to electricity at the airport could be, what's the problem?
No CEO of any battery company is ever going to go back to their investors with something that is less competitive than they can get somewhere else. But once you satisfy that criteria, then you've got to look at different sites across the UK, and the electrical connection will be the main factor.
It was hoped, of course, for a long time that Jaguar Land Rover might be the tenants on that site before their announcement last year that they would in fact build a gigafactory down in Somerset, and that was seen as a blow to Coventry's plan. Steve Clark is the Director of Aerotech Aircraft Maintenance, is based at Coventry Airport. Steve, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Phil.
Appreciate you coming on this morning. Obviously, we had a development in this with the announcement last week of new West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker funding £21 million on this. Steve, I mean, how do you feel about the way this has dragged on?
Well, I think it's disgraceful, to tell you the truth. And what's more, if I was a Coventry taxpayer, I would be very upset at the thought of more public money being spent on what is basically an enterprise which is there for developers. And the main problem comes down to the fact that Sir Peter Rigby and his company were given the lease of Coventry Airport by Coventry City Council for very little rent, for peppercorn rent, and he's been trying to maximise the profit that he can make out of developing it. He's supposed to be running an airport, but unfortunately, since he took over around about 2010, 2011, right. What happened is that the airport's been run down, and so it's that now the landing system's been taken away, the hours have been shut, so we don't open on a Sunday or Monday, so it's very difficult for the airport to survive.
Okay.
And as a result of that...
And I appreciate that's your opinion, and feelings are very strong about this, but we don't have the gentleman you've named there here to kind of defend himself and respond to those accusations. I was kind of just trying to get a general idea from you, Steve, about how this whole plan has impacted on your business, because as you say, in the meantime, as this has gone on and run on and still no outcome to it, I'm guessing businesses like your own have suffered.
Well, that's exactly right, because when the planning permission was going ahead, we all put so many objections in based on the fact that the site wasn't suitable for a gigafactory. Those were totally overlooked by the Warwick District Council, and as a result, everything is happening as we predicted. And you're not going to get a gigafactory because it's not right. It's exactly why Tata and JLR ended up going down to Somerset, and that's why at the moment, the gigafactory has now been renamed, the area there, if you haven't noticed, it's called the Gigapark.
Yeah.
And then it's changed now
downscale, doesn't it?
To the Green Power Park.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is you're going to end up with warehouses and an industrial site on one of the best national infrastructure runways that's left in the Midlands and probably in England. And we're going to destroy.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Steve, as I mentioned right at the start there, there's the planning permission that was originally put in place for this years ago is due to run out in March. And you think essentially once that lapses, the outcome of that will be, as you say, a wasted opportunity.
Well, no, it's the plan all along, because they put in the planning permission, there was a clause and they can amend it. And if you look back at the planning permission, they've slipped it in on Christmas Eve when they thought that it's a good time to put it in when nobody's paying attention, and they're going to amend it. And if you look at what's the pictures of the proposed airport now, it's got much smaller buildings on it. If you have a look there, because the actual gigafactory needs a very large footprint. And this is why they claimed we needed the runway to be totally used there for that, and no other site was available. So this is actually false. So we could build warehouses, industrial estates, and if I could just go back to earlier, they were talking about 14,000 jobs when they initially were going to do the gateway facility, which is all around the airport there. That never came to anything, and we're just having a repeat. We're using jobs as a way to entice people in to getting what developers want in the end, which is they just want to produce commercial land that they're going to make a big profit on, and they're going to destroy an airport in the process, which is disgusting.
We'll get a response to that. In the meantime, Steve, appreciate you coming on this morning. Steve Clark, Director of Aerotech Aircraft Maintenance based at Coventry Airport. As I say, Richard Parker announcing a package worth another £21 million to try and install dedicated energy supplies at the site, which would support the large-scale battery production that it was originally hoped for. And that is hope will put Coventry in a better position to attract a battery manufacturer in the future. More on this story a bit later on here throughout the day for you on BBC CWR. It's 10 to 8.